We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's January 17th here in Seoul. I'm Shin Yoon. I'm the news anchor of Arirang's new daily morning program, News Generation, where young people make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 30s and 20s. Now joining me in the studio is Choi Ji-hee.
Good morning, Yeon.
Good morning. And Walter Lee.
Lovely to be back.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, every day we will make a news feed for the new generation, and we're looking at the top trending hashtags on social media in the past 24 hours. So here's the 3 hashtags. The first one is hashtag hate crime. A 56-year-old woman in the U.S. state of Indiana has been charged over the repeated stabbing of an 18-year-old university student in the head on a public bus. The alleged reason was that the victim was Asian, and fortunately, the victim did survive. The second is hashtag Busan is good. That's the new city slogan of Korea's second most populous city, Busan. The city brand committee had asked over 25,000 citizens for their opinions, and the slogan Busan is good ranked first. Officials hope this slogan can surpass New York City's representative, I Heart New York. And the last hashtag is COVID surge, and we're mainly talking about the United States. New subvariants are causing concern as COVID-related deaths rose by a whopping 44% in the last week. Now, why do you think these particular hashtags have been trending among the new Gen Z?
Well, first of all, with first hashtag, with technology at their fingertips, millennials and Gen Zs have been able to connect to different issues, cultures, and news earlier and more often than the other generation before them. And topics such as hate crime and race equity are one of the top matters of interest that have commanded the attention of this generation. And of course, Gen Zs and the millennials, they're more racially and ethnically diverse, which makes these young people also acutely aware of the deep-rooted racial divides and the crimes surrounding the matter.
And I believe it really exacerbated in the United States with the pandemic.
That's
a lot of anti-Asian or AAPI community hate crimes have been seen, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And also going on to that third hashtag, COVID surge. I mean, a lot of people these days aren't taking COVID as seriously as we like, but many people are saying the reasons why are because we're not getting sick days off when we do catch COVID. So we need to make money. We can't afford not to have days off where we're not getting paid. The income these days is very low. Inflation is very high. It's terrible. But to end on a lighter note, talking about that Busan is good, new slogan for Busan City, some people are calling it a little bit lame or a little bit strange because
a
little tacky because good sometimes doesn't sound great in English. You'd use better words like great, fantastic, but it's actually an abbreviation which is global, original, open, and dynamic.
I see. So it was a good acronym.
It was a great acronym.
All right, thank you to you both. And moving on, NewsGen discusses different topics each day, and here's what we have prepared for you today. Due to stubbornly high inflation and rising consumer prices, young people have been looking for ways to be smarter about their money. One way is by saving up as much as they can. How? By using apps on their phones. There are apps that pay out credits or even cash for completing everyday activities like texting or even going for a walk. And with stocks and cryptocurrency no longer a pot of gold, millennial and Gen Z investors are running to the bank to apply for installment savings. Today, NewsGen looks at 3 questions. 1. How does the new generation spend or save up their money? 2. Why have consumer trends changed over the past few years? 3. What's a smart way to handle our money? Now, as we just saw in the video today, we'll talk about consumption and saving patterns among young people. And I'd like to start with a question for both of you. Are you the type to save up for the future or just to spend money to enjoy the moment?
For me personally, I'm an old school saver. I always think about my future. I'd love to spend money now, but I think my future is a little bit more important.
What about you, Ji-hee?
Well, I think I'm really between the two of those. So I do save up, not necessarily thinking about the future, but just because I like the numbers in my savings account go up. And at the same time, I do use up money wisely, of course. purse to spend it on things that I like and enjoy the moment as well.
So you spend it on yourself.
Yes.
All right. And it seems like you guys are quite different in the sense that Walter prefers to save up and Chihi, while you value spending, you do spend it wisely.
Yes,
And I think that's how a lot of the new gen are divided. And another popular trend amongst us is the concept called open run.
That's right.
Right.
And for those of our viewers who don't know what this is when you run to either like the shopping mall or like the bank, doesn't matter, as soon as it opens, right?
Literally. So there's one type, and there's a open run for luxury goods, and it's basically about lining up in front of usually department stores to really run to the luxury brand stores as soon as they open to get the goods you want. And according to Morgan Stanley's recent report, Koreans' spending on luxury goods per capita, that is, stands at #1 in the world, and the number in fact increased by 24% on year as of 2022. I haven't done it myself before, but I did hear stories of my friends doing one. One of my friends, she did an open run to get an Hermes bracelet for her boyfriend, and what she said was she had to go to some 2 or 3 department stores, had to line up at 6 or 7 a.m.
That's really early.
I know it's really early, but you know, usually these department stores, they open at 10 a.m.
Yes.
So she really had to wait for like 3 to 4 hours to get the goods she wanted. And what she said was, open runs are not for those with a lot of money, but really for those with a lot of time.
Right, just adding on to what Chi said, there's actually this trend as well, which I find very interesting as a person who loves to save, with banks. Now, you wouldn't think banks are like one of those places that you'd line up very long around the corner, but now banks are coming up with these installment plans, these high interest deposit plans, and people now are lining up around the corner just to be a part of it because, like luxury brands, there's only a certain amount that they can give out. So they will be lining up from 6 a.m. in the morning just to get one of these plans.
I see. Now, if we do move on to the topic of how the young people right now are spending money, I believe that it has changed from a few years ago, right?
Oh, yes, it did. So youngsters here in Korea, they have been adopting this new consumption style for the past few years, and this is called 소확행. It would be literally translated into small but certain happiness.
I see.
So instead of pursuing the purchase of big things such as an apartment, a car, or getting married, or getting a job, for example, you simply look for ways to make yourself happy with the little things in life. So in the past, consumption used to trend around YOLO, flex, young and rich, right? One of the 소확행, or little sources of happiness for me would be to buy little stickers.
Oh, stickers. Those are definitely small but
They're
certain.
small, yes, small but certain, not very expensive, 1,000 to 300, 3,000 Korean won.
Right, so like $2.
Yes, $2 around, yes.
All right. And with interest rates skyrocketing, a lot of the younger generation are looking for safer investment options. And that's why another popular term amongst us is 짠테크, right? But what does this mean?
Well, it's actually a Korean abbreviation of 짜다, meaning stingy or cheap, which sounds negative, but in this case, it's not really. But also, 재테크, which is sort of, in English, how do we translate it? To investment techniques, maybe? So basically what is happening is the MZ generation has come to this income stagnation where they're not investing, they're not spending a lot of money. This is because of what's happening with the high inflation at the moment. We don't have a lot of money to spend. We want to save up for our retirement, which has led to other trends coming from that, which is, well, here's one trend that I've been a part of in my life, which is 냉장고 파먹기.
냉장고 파먹기.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, 냉장고 is refrigerator in English, and 파먹기 is kind of like digging into your refrigerator, looking for something to eat and creating meals from what you find inside your refrigerator. It's because we can't afford to go out, we can't afford to get the delivery food anymore.
Hard, right. And I hear, Chihi, that you've also tried some options too, right?
Yes, I did. It's not 냉장고 파먹기, but I've tried other things such as cash slide. It's like sliding your the screensavers to earn pennies, and I also collected review points after shopping online, and I still do collect coffee stamps or coupons to get my free coffee.
Now, if I may say, I don't think we're being stingy. I think we're just being wise.
Oh,
I think
yes.
that's a better way of saying
Right?
it. Yes.
So it's a wise wise investment technique.
That's right.
All right, so let's wrap our discussion for now, and soon we will hear from an economics professor on how to better spend and invest. So please stay tuned. All right, so some spending and saving habits seems to be changing amongst the new generation, and let's find out whether we are all on the right track from an economics professor from Seogang University. Joining us through Skype is Professor Chun Young-her. Welcome.
Hi, and thanks for having me.
All right, Professor, I'd like to ask you, why have young people's consumption trends changed over the past few years?
I think changes in the economic environment is the big issue here. So with COVID-19, like a lot of central bank in the world, they lower interest rate and asset price rises. We all know that asset price, interest rate, they are like negatively related. So I mean, this is the point where the young people started investing on financial assets. And then, I mean, many of them feel like kind of wealthier with the rising asset prices. But things are quite different from 2021. Like global inflation went up. It peaked in 2022, last year. And then the interest rate like started to rise in the world. And then higher prices for goods and services and higher interest rate. So people think that, oh, geez, I mean, the items that I buy too expensive. So which means less consumption expenditure. But it is important that the effects are quite different across age groups. One evidence is the perceived economic misery index surveyed by one of the Korean think tank, which is Korean Economic Research Institute. The index surveys perceived unemployment rate and inflation across different age groups. And the higher the index is, the worse the situation is. I mean, according to the survey, I mean, in 2022, the first half, I mean, the youth between age 15 and 29, their like misery index is way above than the other age groups. So in sum, young people are the most sensitive to the worsened economic condition, and this affect their consumption habits and spending, patterns.
Right, and as we're seeing a higher economic misery index, the younger generation are refraining from their YOLO, you only live once consumption. Instead, we're saving up to a point where, as Walter mentioned, 짠테크 is trending. How is this affecting the economy, though?
I think, one of the thing we can see is the consumption polarization. So on the one hand, people spend like a whatever item, like how luxurious, how expensive the items are, they spend. It is worth spending for. And on the other hand, like people try to be frugal as possible. So they're like, instead of buying like kind of like expensive franchise coffee, they just like started to buy the like relatively cheaper coffee to save money. And the other, at the same time, people start to say, as Walter mentioned a few minutes ago, and then people started to save more because the price is so high, and then like their future is so uncertain. So maybe like the consumption goes, down in this end. So, economy-wise, I think, the latter effect, if that dominates, the consumption will go down. But we are living in a world with kind of like relatively, economic downturn happens right now in 2023. So with reduced consumption, maybe like the economic downturn can be worsened.
Okay, and I believe that you two might have a question for Professor He as well.
Right, so I have one, Professor. So how are companies trying to cope with this new trend of consumption among the millennials and the Gen Zs?
Yeah, people value their experience, like especially young people, they value their experience because partly because of the popularized the SNS, things like that. So you can see if you walk around Seoul and everywhere, you will see a lot of pop-up stores. So the company is not just selling their product, they selling the experience with their product. So
Right.
there's a lot of pop-up stores in this, in these days. And on the other hand, you can see, as Jihi mentioned, there's like a lot of X to earn apps. So what I mean by X to earn apps is you are earning something out of your, out of sharing something of
Right.
your experience, like your like move to learn apps, and you have like live to earn apps. Also, you have like travel to earn apps. Those kinds of apps are kind of like popular in these days, and then they'll reflect the current situation of like rising prices and everything. So people spend wisely and to be frugal as possible.
Right, right.
And Professor, I have this friend who has a baby on the way. He spends so much money on food and coffee and technology and all these things he doesn't really need. I was just wondering if you could give him some advice on, or your best advice on how to save money or at least spend it wisely.
Yeah, I know that economics is kind of boring, and macroeconomic kind of condition, like perceiving that is kind of very costly in some sense. But one of my suggestions is like you try to like keep your eyes on the current economic situation, economic condition, measured by the inflation and interest rate. So that way maybe you can have a better idea of when to save, when to consume more. Maybe like that's the advice I want to give you. To your friends.
And it was your friend, right?
No comment.
Not you.
All right, thank you so much, Professor He. Thank you so much for the insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, if we bring the discussion back to the studio, let's talk about any points that may have fascinated you two based on what Professor He have said.
Well, I think it was interesting how he mentioned companies are trying to target the millennials by making them buy or purchase experiences along with the objects, such as having pop-up stores, right? Because that's a wiser way of spending, because experiences, they last. Objects, the happiness you get from it, they don't really last as that long, but experiences, they make you grow, learn, and they remain. And it's really about investing in yourself as well. So I thought that point was interesting in particular.
What about you, Walter?
Yeah, I also have to agree with what he said there. I've been to many pop-up stores as well, and I can understand the marketing value that goes behind it. And as a consumer, we love seeing those pop-up stores. They become somewhat of a social media trend as well. We want to upload it, and usually people flood those places very, very quickly.
Very quickly. I love going there myself as well. All right. Now, given that we are a live morning program, we always ask our viewers what they have to say based on questions related to our discussion topic in advance. And we use this time to share with you what they had to say. And we asked how they save up or how they invest. Kyun Kim Nathan 7284 said he saves up by Youth Hope Savings, Housing Subscription Savings, and other saving accounts. Tears Bell 4740 says she takes a portion of her paychecks, puts it into her savings. The rest of her paycheck goes to living expenses such as groceries, phone bill, rent, and I think Benny D97 is actually on board as well. He puts a portion of his money in a micropayment channel, and the rest goes for essentials. Now, based on these comments, what do you think, Jihi?
Right, so as Tira's Bell commented, I also save up by taking a portion of my paycheck and putting it into my savings. But since I'm a freelancer, I don't really have like a set monthly salary, and I have sources of income, various sources in fact. So instead of taking a portion of it out first, I set like a goal of my expenses or a limit of my expenses for that month, and anything that I earn other than that, I would save it in my savings account.
That's really wise. Yeah, what about you, Walter?
Yeah, I also have to echo what he said. I'm also a freelancer, so it is very hard for us to manage our account, especially when our pay comes in all different times throughout the month. But for me, I keep it very simple. My wife is much better at managing those finances than me, so I just give her all the money and she deals with it.
Personal accountant.
Exactly. As long as there's one smart partner who can act as a smart accountant. That's all you need. All right, and every day we do upload questions related to our discussion topic for our viewers to answer. And if you want to participate participate, please search Arirang News on YouTube and look into our community tab. And we've already come to the very last part of our discussion for today.
It goes by so quickly,
I know.
right?
It does,
Oh,
it
so short.
does. And it's good that a lot of people in our generation aren't spending our money recklessly, like YOLO or like, you only live once. But as Professor He mentioned, for the sake of keeping the economy rolling, we shouldn't be too scared to spend. And where are some places you guys wouldn't be too guilty of when spending?
Well, I should say we shouldn't be scared or we shouldn't feel guilty of spending money on investing in ourselves. So for studying or for grooming or on social or experiences.
Right.
And like Professor He said, especially when you're spending money on an experience, they say it leaves you feeling happier and happier for a longer time even compared to buying like an object that you own. So I say you should make purchases that's really about investing in yourself.
Right, you're spending,
Yes,
but you're
spending.
investing in
Yes,
yourself.
that's right.
What about you, Walter?
So for me, I go back to that old saying, retail therapy. Investing in myself is personally going out and eating some good food. And that is the experience that I look forward to because I never feel bad after a full stomach.
Exactly. It always makes me happy too.
Yes.
All right, and the last question is, do you guys think that this type of consumption trend will continue even amongst yourselves?
I think so for the time being, yes, but I don't think it's a bad thing because we're learning to really appreciate the little things in life. I like the saying, happiness is about frequency, not magnitude, which means it's really about the little moments of joy in life other than like the big moments of happiness. So it's really about having a good meal with a friend. Yes, so enjoy those little moments.
Right, enjoy it frequently.
Yes.
What about you, Walter? Last thoughts?
I'd love to be as optimistic as Chi here, but it really just depends on the economy at the moment, whether it's going to go bad or get worse or hopefully get better. But, there are some things that maybe the government could help out with, like fiscal stimulus. I know that they are helping out in some ways, but for people like me who have a baby on the way, who got married, we definitely need some of those government benefits to come in a bit more.
And there's definitely some on the way, so we'll be looking into that. And all right, today we talked about how the new generation spends and saves up our money. We also learned a few tips on how to be more wise with our consumption. And we'll be here every day from 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you the topics that young people are talking about. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee
Thank you, Yan.
and Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here again.
Thank you both for joining me here in the studio, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow morning. We are News Generation.